Hi and welcome to DevOps Skåne. We're going to talk about DevOps teams, or not we, Jacob's going to talk about DevOps teams and platform teams and what did we solve. And thanks to Foo Café for letting us be here and giving us pizza, because that's what we want. So we have a meet and greet. We did that already. Going to be a presentation and then some drinks. And afterwards, it's not going to be a planned session, but there's like a QA. You can talk to each other, talk to us, talk to Jacob, right? So DevOps Skåne, we have had quite a few meetups since 2018 when we started. We have lots of members on meetup.com. And currently, we are the three ones that are trying to manage this. So we have Fredrik, Evelina also here. Evelina and Fredrik. Right. And thank you very for the sponsoring on your stickers. You can take stickers on the table over there. Just take some. And you can get in touch with us through different locations. Yeah, I'm not sure. That's it. Any questions before we start? No. Good.
I have one question. Is there anyone who are against being in a picture and later on in a LinkedIn post?
Can I say yes?
Okay, Jacob, welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jacob from
Yeah.
Rebranded.
Let's close that one. Okay. I'm going to talk about. Well, I'm actually not going to talk that much about DevOps teams or platform teams. I'm going to talk more about my experience being in a DevOps team and in a platform team, and maybe a bit more on the high level of what a platform team should try to do to be a platform team and not just focus on, Kubernetes and Terraform and Helm and stuff, and actually try to help people. So this talk is more from my experience, especially seeing DevOps teams being renamed to platform teams and nothing really changing, but just platform engineering is the hype now, so we're gonna rebrand and then it's the same old. So actually, that's a rhetorical question. What did we solve? Because I won't really answer that, but kind of. About me, and I put a little bunny on my shoulder because it's almost Easter. So I'm a consultant and one of the founders at Verifa. I've been doing DevOpsy stuff since 2011. So Jenkins was kind of the thing that I started with a lot, and then been doing a bunch of other stuff since then. But it's been nice because I still do a lot of technical hands-on work, and I still get to go out and see other companies and do workshops and then learn from my nice colleagues as well, what they're up to, and get a feeling of both. So I'm not really like a hardcore technical only person, but I'm also not like a high level. I'm kind of doing a bit of both, hopefully well. And yeah, I have a family. They're actually in Lund now. My daughter's a bit too small to come here. I didn't want her to say my name too many times. So they're in Lund, and things I like to do are juggling and music. So that's about me. And you can connect with me if you like, and I might like that. Okay, so if you went and asked, I should stand here. Tell me if I'm in the way. I probably notice when I look backwards. So if you went and asked a typical DevOps team, this person on the left here is the person doing the asking. Maybe a manager, maybe, I don't know, a colleague somewhere in the team. And then you've got your little team lead stick man with a hat. So what does your team do? Well, we enable DevOps, and then, we do a bunch of stuff to do DevOpsy things. Is what you might see when you go and ask a typical DevOps team. My experience of DevOps teams is usually they have quite unclear goals and roles. They usually just react to stuff going on in the organization. They're very bad at saying no. So, we need this tool. Yeah, give it to the DevOps team. And, they will say, yeah, we'll run this in our Kubernetes cluster, no problem. but they don't actually know what people are going to do with it. They just, just take it. And this kind of behavior leads to very unclear boundaries, because you're not really sure what the DevOps teams are going to be accountable for or responsible for, and there is a difference there. So it just leads to them running stuff, trying to help, and probably helping too much, and then not really knowing when they should say no, that's not our responsibility. They just get pulled left, right, and center, and that's not very healthy for anyone, because suddenly they're too busy to think forwards and just end up being a firefighting team for a lot of the time. Not always, but this is, I would say, quite common to what I've seen. So a platform team, if people don't know what team topologies is, the book, I would highly recommend reading it or watching YouTube videos. Find out what it is, because they really started this hype about platform engineering now, and they started it in a very good way. I think what tends to happen in the industry is that people have good intentions and they say nice things and useful things, and then marketing teams come in and they just like, yeah, platform engineering, buy our tool. But this is very good for originally what the platform team, or as they've defined it, was supposed to do. So it's this compelling internal product. So you build an internal platform which you treat as a product to accelerate the delivery by streamlined teams. Streamlined teams being the people who are aligned with value streams within your company. So they would be software development teams. They could be teams doing data research or data analytics and so on, but somehow kind of like providing a function for your business to the end users, what you sell. They could be internal streamlined teams as well, where the end customer is another internal company. But yeah. And then there's this Evan Botcher, who seems to get quoted everywhere as well, so I thought I'd put him there because, why not? But yeah, so I'm always really bad at reading this, but it's kind of the same thing. You're supposed to help your software developers, if we focus on software development teams, to do things faster and higher speed and so on. So that's the goal of a platform team on a very high level. To me, I think what a platform team should try and do is to enable flow. And I like to think of flow as, if you want to get from A to B, then the best flow you can get is just a straight line. No detours, no learning, no sort of nothing, but obviously you're not going to be able to get from A to B without learning or doing something, so it's about keeping that flow, the line, as straight as possible. Not sort of, I have to learn this so that I can do this, so that I can do this, so I get back at the next step and take a massive detour and add to the cognitive load and learning and time wasted, and so that's my high-level definition of it. And a nice picture that I saw online before I gave this talk last time, a couple of months ago. Not exact same talk, but similar. I think this, what traditional DevOps teams do is they take tools and they maybe write some docs internally and provide, Terraform modules, Helm charts, a composition of tools and something to the users, but it kind of offloads all the complexity to the users. And what the platform team should be doing is trying to not make every single button and knob available, but to try and offload some of that complexity so that it's easier for the users to actually do what they're supposed to do. Why build I'm going to go quickly over this. So it's really fun now because everyone's like, oh yeah, developer experience is the new term that everybody's talking about now. But there was research already done. This is from a scientific paper you can read from 2012, where they gave a really good definition of developer experience. And actually some of this work is being referenced over and over and over again, even today. So there is the Nicole Forsgren and the group who did the DORA research have now done the DevX in Action report, which is what everybody's now quoting. But what a lot of people don't know is that actually there was a very good definition of this already in 2012 that's still very relevant today. So they define DevX as three things: cognition, so this is brain power and how much you have to think and learn and do stuff. The affection, which is, you know, some more about the team belonging and culture and this sort of stuff. And then conation, which is to do with how do you feel your work is valued. And I would say that platform engineering is more focused on the cognition, and this is usually now where everybody talks about, you know, let's build a platform to minimize cognitive load and enable flow and everything. But I would also say it's a lot to do with how people value their work, because if you have to jump through a lot of hoops before you can even start doing something meaningful, it's very demoralizing and it's very demotivating and sort of, okay, I just want to like, I just want to do my work. And I think a good platform experience can really give people like, okay, I'm supposed to be writing code and shipping code. And if you can do that, it's really great for your motivation. But yeah, I mean, about developer experience, the statistics are now that you already pay and hire developers. So why not make them more efficient? I mean, that's, you know, that's the fairly obvious side of it. You can look up facts and statistics yourselves. I don't want to stand here and, you know, this paper said 60% improvement. You can research that yourself, but that's the high level idea, right? That we try and make people more effective and efficient. So back to our typical DevOps team, and this was the person who was asking the questions. He had an epiphany. So if this DevOps team they went and asked are already managing some kind of software delivery tool chain or process or whatever for the development team, then they're already a platform team, right? So we just now call them a platform team and we ask them what they do. And now the lead with the top hat says that, yeah, now we build a platform and we focus on, you know, developer experience and self-service and service catalogs and still all the other stuff. But nothing really changed that much. But anyway, maybe now we can say that DevOps is dead because we have platform engineering, right? And a couple of years ago when platform engineering became really popular, this is what people started to take to LinkedIn and, you know, I mean, there is a bit of truth, not in this, but I would say that maybe DevOps teams are dying and maybe should be dead, although the definition of a DevOps team is not very clear, so it kind of depends what they're actually doing. But I would say in most cases the DevOps team that are just maintaining tools and supporting developers with tools without really knowing what they're doing and helping them to do that would benefit from learning and maybe trying to do more platform engineering-y things. So I have a fun example, and to go through that example, I made a little diagram that I'm going to explain very quickly because it helps follow the example. So this is the development teams. I was supposed to say earlier that when we talk about developer experience, this paper from 2012 says that a developer is basically anybody involved with the software delivery process. And I think that's worth stating because a lot of people now are like, you know, what about all the other people involved in the process? And just, it's software development teams. This little dotted box is the internal platform. So this is the, you know, compelling internal product that we're building as platform engineers. The greenish box here is the interface. So this is what the users will interact with. It could be a CLI, a web UI, some API, you know, that kind of stuff. And then the third-party stuff is the things that we use to build our platform. We're not going to build everything in-house, obviously. So we might use AWS or Azure or Google Cloud, or we might use Kubernetes or Terraform, or, you know, stuff that we pull in externally to make our platform do stuff. And the red pinkish line is the cognitive load indicator. In a way, it's how far the team needs to go into the platform to use it. So how far down into the technical depths of this platform that we've made do they need to go to be able to use it? Which is, in a way, the cognitive load if you just look at it in another way. how much do they need to know about the tools and the underlying stuff? So ideally, this line would just, would just go to the interface. But so on the right here, we've got our DevOps team, and on the left, we've got a developer, and yeah, the developers are like, we need to run containers. This is a noddy example, so don't this is more to illustrate a point. So then the DevOps team are like, yeah, here's Kubernetes. That's a third-party tool. And now the developers are already dependent on third-party stuff because they need to know Kubernetes to run the containers. Oh yeah, where do we put our containers? And I need to store them. I used to have a little wheel of fortune thing here that would pick out tools, but the integration broke and I was too lazy to fix it. So sorry for the lack of animations. But anyway, we put now Harbor there, which is one of the CNCF tools. The Wheel of Fortune was actually all the CNCF container registry storage tools, which most people didn't know half of them, which is kind of fun, because I didn't either. Anyway, they want to make Kubernetes easier because it's difficult, so we built some Helm charts. You could argue that Helm is actually a third-party thing, but the Helm chart, which is what the developers will use, here's my few values, and it translates that into Kubernetes stuff. We could consider that now an interface. I'll tell you why it's a bad interface though later. And then yeah, we could put Argo CD in there as well, so now we can see all our applications and get a good overview of our Kubernetes cluster. Oh yeah, I was supposed to mention this cognitive load indicator has been going up, and then the developers complain that there's a lot of tools here that they need to learn and use. So then the DevOps team are like, well, we'll just fix that by adding more tools. We'll put Backstage in there, and we get a lovely, wonderful UI, and we'll use Crossplane to help you provision infrastructure, so you don't need to care about that anymore. And now the cognitive load has gone right up the bum of the developer. So not good. So how was this platform built? Dave Farley calls it design by accident. There was no real design. It just kind of, okay, this needs to be done, and we'll just glue it together with Bash and other stuff. So it was built reactively. There was no focus on the developer experience. I've been meaning to write something about developer experience is not developer consideration, because I'm sure they considered the developers when they were doing this, but they didn't think about developer experience. And most of the time they were solving symptoms, not the core problem. We need to run containers, or we need somewhere to store the containers. Well, storing containers is a symptom of needing to run containers, because you have to store them somewhere so you can run them. But maybe you could ask that, why are you doing this? And could you even take this back a level, that could this be done in a better way, that the storage and the running is done in a single flow, in a single step, rather than the developers learning how to integrate with your AWS ECR or your Google Cloud Container Registry and running, all the commands needed to do that. Oh yeah, but of course the DevOps team will say that they're focused on developer experience because they're a platform team, and they will say that. If we now switch the roles, so this is no longer a DevOps team but a platform team, and I purposefully moved the developer and the other person around, so we now got the platform team on the left, because I would say that it's should be the way that the platform team actually goes out of their way to go and talk with the developers and be proactive about how they do things, not the other way around. So now the platform team might want to learn how a development team work, and then do some stuff. I can talk about some stuff later that they would do. But then, yeah, they have some hypothesis, some idea that we think you need to do this to deliver value. And then the developer says, yeah, let us know when we can test something. And then the platform team come back with something like Heroku or Fly.io or Google Cloud Run, or I'm not saying this is what you should do. I'm just, I find the fact that Heroku is still around and still popular, it's still used, to be a really good testament of somebody making something really nice and dumb for people to use. Like, tell me your Git repository, and I'll even figure out how to build your Docker image for you nowadays. And then you can just run stuff. Doesn't work in corporate settings because, you know, corporate companies like to control and lock everything down. But I mean, you could. There's nothing stopping you from building something like that internally within your company. And now, if you're running this in Kubernetes, if you're running it in some serverless framework or some serverless, you know, setup, or on VMs, might not be relevant at all for the developer. So why expose those underlying things to them? Because they shouldn't have to care. That's the platform contract you give. Tell me what you want to run, and we'll run it. We won't tell you where, or you don't need to know where. So the characteristics of a platform team would be to have better defined goals, because if you know what your developers want to do and what things they might need, then you can actually define some kind of boundaries, and with that some goals. And it requires you to be proactive in doing so. And once you know what's in scope and out of scope, then you can say no to stuff, because not everything people ask for needs to be done. If your platform team is specifically doing, you know, we run containers for teams. Somebody comes and asks that, yeah, we need to run Elasticsearch. Can you do that? And you say, well, no, that's not what we're doing. We're focusing on this simple thing, and we can keep our team small and not start trying to do everything. And a bit about clear boundaries is about I think it's about expectations. When a DevOps team are running a stack of tools and either they can't use it properly or something goes wrong, it's very unclear who's responsible for it and who they should go and ask, and is it even the DevOps team's job to then go and help people. When you have some kind of platform, you can define what's the best practice and if you want to use this tool this way, this is what we recommend and we support. If you want to go and write your own Python scripts to interact with it, sure, do it, but we're not going to help you. And this kind of boundary doesn't exist in a lot of DevOps teams, because people start cooking up all kinds of crazy solutions, and then they come to this DevOps team like, hey, my Python script failed, and then like, which Python script? Like, oh yeah, I wrote it myself. And then 4 hours of debugging later, we find out it was actually a Python error, not anything else. But yeah. How am I doing for time? I've done 20 minutes, or I've got 20 minutes left? 20 minutes left, okay. I'll be quick through this. So some kind of tips. I mean, if you start reading about this topic, this is the obvious one, that you shouldn't be the team building the platform for your company. You should be looking at this like we want people to use this, and it should be their choice to use it. So we have to make it good and enjoyable for them to use. Otherwise, there's no point building it. I'm actually going to talk about this a bit more in a moment. This like interface of the platform should not be, well, the cognitive load stuff is fairly obvious, but the leaky abstractions is the fun part, because this is where tools like Helm charts and Terraform modules are two very good examples, are really bad, because there's no way you can give a Terraform module to a team of whatever people and be like, just create this little file of Terraform things and run it, and everything's going to be great. It's not going to be great. It's going to go wrong. Something's going to break at some point in time, and the error that's going to get thrown back is going to be some horrible Terraform error about the specific module you've written, and now you're throwing underlying knowledge about the specific things you're doing up into the face of the user. So the abstractions are leaky. They leak, like complex stuff that should be not exposed. Can be available, but not exposed just to do things. And the other one is about, the backwards compatibility. I think any team wanting to maintain a good platform where the developers trust you should not break stuff just because, SonarQube changed their API and now everybody's pipelines are going to fail. So now we've got to upgrade everybody's pipelines. These kind of scenario shouldn't like you're gonna piss people off. And if you don't put some interface between the third-party tools you use and pipelines and things that are using those, then you can't guarantee backwards compatibility. There's just no way about it. And I'm not saying you should put a little interface on top of everything. I mean, you're gonna use GitHub or GitLab or whatever other tools you want to use. You're not gonna write an interface over that, but that's kind of just common sense. So don't take that don't take everything I say like, oh, interface over everything, because that's sometimes what people start to get worried about. But should the platform be generalized or opinionated? The one big mistake that I have seen, and I've also been involved with, and I hope to never make it again, is to set off on a goal that we're going to build this platform to help these teams, and then do a little bit of research, have some designs, and then come back like 3 to 6 months later with, here's the platform you asked for, and it's going to be perfect. And then it's not perfect at all. It's really bad, actually. I would much rather spend a few weeks hacking together some horrible thing just to be like, can you just run this and tell me if you like it or not? Ignore the horrible user experience, or the UI and whatever we've done. Just tell me if the concept is right. Are we actually helping, or are we completely going in the wrong direction? Because if you go in the wrong direction from the beginning and then spend 3 to 6 months writing a wonderful web user interface with perfect CSS styling and everything, then you're not really solving problems. You're just you're just being an engineer. And it's also very difficult to, once you give stuff and people start using it, it's very difficult to remove it. One of the examples that I like now is I do a lot of Go development, and the Go JSON package has been, they're still on the V1 version of it, and there are like bugs in there that people have started to rely on as features, and they can't now fix those bugs because it would break stuff for people. And this is a really nice example where if you try and do too much to be like, isn't it great, look at all these features, you can't remove that stuff afterwards without pissing people off. So again, just do something really specific maybe in the beginning, and then you're going to save yourself a lot of pain. So yeah, obviously it should be opinionated. Opinionated in the context of your company and so on. Another one I really like. I don't. This is the last one. I try to pick stuff that I don't find other people talking about, or that I see kind of like gaps in. I couldn't find these things online so easily, but they are things I've seen from experience. And this automation versus manual is one I really like, because everybody is GitOps everything. We have to do everything GitOps. So we're going to force GitOps on our users. They have to do everything GitOps. And I've seen onboarding for some tools. Not going to name any names except Backstage, where even like getting in, it's like, here's a repository, make a PR, fill in this YAML file, do some other stuff, and then now you can actually do something. And I'm like, well, did it really require all this for me to even get access to this tool? I have, of course, automation has its place, but if you have 100 users and they're all going to perform one action once, then does that really need to be automated, or can they just go in and click a button and then they're in? And I feel like people don't kind of take this pragmatic approach sometimes. They just think that, okay, our platform is built up with continuous deployment and GitOps and things, so we have to do that. Like, our users now have to do that. Well, they don't. So I'm not saying one is better or the other. It's just, think about it before you put this on people. I'm looking at Albert because he helped me make this thing. I had some ideas for a long period of time that I only put into this presentation very recently, like today. I hope they're good ideas. So one of the bits of feedback I get from doing this is that it's all very fluffy. So how do I actually do something? And it's very difficult to say how to actually do something because everything's going to be very specific and tool specific and company specific. But in my head, what I have sort of found that I have been doing and I think is like like a model or a layering for how I would go about designing a platform is to start with an abstraction, which is nothing, it's not a technical implementation, it's more of a mental model and a vocabulary that that speaks in the language of your end users. So don't name everything the way AWS names it, because maybe that's not going to help the people who are actually going to use it internally to your company. Maybe just name a database, and then they can, you know, maybe you don't even need a database. Maybe that's like hidden away. It's just assumed. Anyway, so make the sort of mental model of how your developers would talk to this platform based on what they're going to do. The API is then the implementation of that abstraction with some kind of I put here data contract. I mean, this could be a REST API. It could be, you know, whatever API you want to conjure up. But I feel like the data contract is the most important thing, because if people start producing data, you know, a YAML file to say I want this, just an example, then you want to make sure you don't break that contract later on. So you need, you know, you need to manage schemas, just like we've been doing with APIs since, you know, since APIs became a thing. Nothing new there. And then the interface is the, you know, the nice sugar coating on top, where we might write a CLI, we might write a web UI, we might write, you know, whatever UI you want to have for your use case that would then talk with the API that then, you know, would actually go and do something. So this is kind of like what the end users will interact with. This is how they think, and then this is how you maintain a sort of stable platform that hopefully won't break very often. In terms of an API. And there's a really good talk. Link is here. YouTube talk about building abstractions, not illusions. And he talks a lot about abstractions. This is about platform engineering, so it's very relevant. I would highly recommend to watch that talk. But yeah, an abstraction is removing details that aren't like necessary for people to care about or worry about. But an illusion is when you remove too many of them, that it just makes the thing not usable and it misleads people. It's really difficult to, I think, get a good abstraction, but I'm going to talk a bit about that given that I have time. But I would recommend listening to this to get some nice ideas about abstractions versus illusions. And one of the nice examples he has is that if we took a car and you know, we're the DevOps team who've made the car, and now we need to make an interface for users, we're not going to call it the piston crankshaft gear wheel assembly. We would just call it a car. And there's the accelerator, which is the pedal you press to go, and there's a clutch and there's a brake, and lots of stuff happens underneath. But we've made an abstraction that allows people to drive. You know, we can talk about driving and accelerating and braking, and then we've just built well, the API would be, you know, all the all the cabling, whatever else, and then the interface, or maybe the API would be just the, you know, the pedals actually, because electric cars, for example. Did you take your driving test in a petrol car? Can you drive an electric car? All the third-party stuff has just been changed, but the API is very similar. So that's nice. It's nice to have a good example. Shame I can't have good examples about the software side, because it seems to just change so much. So 4 things that we have been doing at Verifa and with teams that I find are really like nice complementary things to do to help design or assess an existing platform. Value stream mapping, I have a little diagram after this. So basically doing workshops with your development teams to understand how they work and how they actually deliver value, which tools they use, how they talk to each other. You know, you really get into the mindset of how they work. Wardley mapping, I also have a little diagram to help illustrate it. which is you could do this with the end users, the development teams, but it's also something very useful to just do as a platform team, that you can visualize your platform with two axes, how visible it is to the end user and how mature it is in terms of if it's a SaaS service that you trust a lot or something you've been doing for a long time internally, then it would be mature. If it's something you're just prototyping or playing with. But this gives you a way to reason about how much you actually put in the face of your developers. And it's really fun to do this with teams because they suddenly see, like that's a lot of tools and a lot of things that people have to learn to use our platform, or our platform, yeah. Gemba walks, or shadowing or sitting together with development teams to learn how they work on a daily basis, and then recurring surveys. So some kind of high level surveys. I've seen surveys go very well and very very bad. I think this is more about not trying to learn about how teams work, but trying to get on a high level which teams are doing what and which teams are maybe not so good in an area or better in others, so that you can then go and do something a bit more like meaningful with them. So that's where I see surveys coming into the picture. If you want to talk to me after this about any of these, I'm more than happy to talk about stuff. But this would be some kind of value stream map. These pink boxes are different types of waste, and this is some release process on a high level from requirements to production and back again. Actually Albert made this because we needed a picture to show people. That wasn't some customers thing, because that wouldn't be very nice. And then something that I put together very briefly as well. This is a Wardley map, so you have the how mature it is along the bottom, more mature things over here and less mature things here, and then the visibility is up on the y-axis. More visible things to the end users are higher, and lower visible things are down here, and that's pretty much all you need to know to use this for assessing a platform, because then you could put the tools and the things that you make up your stack on here. You might need multiple of these, some high level, some lower level, some for specific tools, do whatever makes sense. But then you can start to reason that, we have this internal platform here called Platypus, and the web needs to become more mature, and the CLI needs to get more visible, and we need to move things like security scanning and artifact management and get people out of the AWS console down, and Grafana needs to become more visible. Maybe we can add a link from the Grafana in Platypus web where we can see the service catalog, and yeah, I think you get the idea. You kind of get a good glance of this is the platform that we give to our developers. Do we really want all these things to be visible, and do we want them more mature or not? So it's a very good snapshot in time what to do next. And a little side project that I made, because I was on the bench for a little bit, helping out with a few projects here and there. But I worked a lot with Nats, which is a tool you don't need to know about right now. And I was curious I wanted to make something that would be actually it didn't, I'm explaining this really badly now. It's a bit like a Kubernetes API. So if you're familiar with Kubernetes, you apply objects and you have controllers and things that reconcile and create stuff in the cloud. It's the same kind of model on top of Nats, but very simple. So it's very simple to define objects, very simple to write controllers and get the same kind of feeling, which I think is a very good feeling for platforms. Create an object and something goes and then creates that in the cloud. And then to kind of give some way of creating a UI, there's a gateway which communicates with web portals, so web servers over NATs as well. So you can build a single pane of glass or whatever it is you want to call it, HTTP interface that enables them to do stuff. Like provision cloud resources or see information about another tool. And then you can build CLIs and things on top of this as well. So this is a little side project that I made, and it's open source. And there is no sort of grand plan. It's just I think it's fresh because it kind of does a lot of what Backstage does with Kubernetes and Crossplane, but you don't need Kubernetes. You don't need to operate Backstage. The only thing you need to operate is NATS, and then you have to code stuff. But there's no way, you can't build a good platform without coding in a real programming language. Might be an unpopular opinion. I'm happy to debate it with you after this. But Bash and Terraform strung together, shoved in the face of a user, is not a compelling internal platform, in my opinion. So 4 minutes. So if you're interested in this, I mean, give it a try or contact me, and I would be happy to help. It's written in Go, and you have to write Go. Yeah, I know. Well, yeah. Well, that one I would like to debate, 'cause I'm a big fan of Go. I mean, you could write anything to support NATS. I just, just haven't been bothered yet. It's always nice to end with a quote from somebody famous. So when would you use iterative development? Well, Martin Fowler would say only when you want to succeed in what you are doing. And I feel like building this kind of platform interface and developer experience is very much an iterative thing to do. So don't spend too long building something grand. Just kind of treat it like a startup and get it out to your end users. So short summary, DevOps is not dead, but DevOps teams should be, maybe. And yeah, what platform teams should do is not do what the DevOps teams have been doing and rename it, but actually focus on users and enabling flow. And then, yeah, you don't build a developer experience in one go, it's done iteratively. And that's my talk. So thanks for listening. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi. I have a question about NATS. How does it compare to, for example, Crossplane in terms of making abstractions and provisioning stuff?
Oh, NATS is actually a like more of a pub sub tool. So if you're interested in this, I mean, this has a key value store and stuff too. You still probably would use something like Terraform or maybe Crossplane or whatever to do the actual, what you do from a controller in Horizon to create resources is up to you. But the idea is about not exposing all of those things directly to an end user, and then also not being forced down a path. So actually, I wrote some stuff that uses Terraform. I wrote just some Terraform that I embedded in a Go binary, not even using modules. And the controllers would just call some Terraform to provision resources. I mean, Terraform's nice because it actually does reconciliation. Like, that's what it does with the state. So I wouldn't compare NATS with Crossplane, but how you actually create stuff in the cloud would be then,
All right, thanks. I'll try it out and I'll ask you for feedback.
Yeah, sure. I hope I answered the question okay. Yeah, they're different tools. So they are different tools. Yeah.
Hi, thanks for your presentation. I was just thinking that in all these things, both from a DevOps perspective and platform now, how does security play a role in any of this? Because it's sort of missing. And for instance, you mentioned third-party tools. And one of the greatest challenges is there are over 3 billion APIs. Only 2% are secured. So how do you solve that problem, given the inherent issues that they are causing now? Sorry, it's loaded.
I actually have my I wear this T-shirt when I get questions. It says it depends. Yeah, we can have a beer and talk afterwards. I'm just it's too high level question. Sorry. But I mean, yeah, it's always going to depend on your company and what that is, and security is not something that you just offload to a platform. I mean, developers should be educated in it and so on as well. So it's kind of like, yeah.
Maybe you should ask your stakeholders what they would need to see to feel secure in using these tools.
Some padlocks.
Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. I think I have quite an old notion of what DevOps is, so I might be mistaken and I haven't read the team topologies. So in my mind, DevOps. Please correct me here. Like if you code it, then you're responsible for running it. So uh, so this is a question about responsibility. So if you have a platform team or a DevOps team that facilitate DevOps in an organization, are the developers still responsible for the running of the services they build, or is now the platform team responsible for it, like in olden days an operations team?
It's a really excellent question.
Thank you.
Yeah, your knowledge is not lost or anything at all. If you ask my opinion, nothing has changed. Developers should still be responsible for the things that they write and run. The platform should merely be a way to get things where they run and then provide means of giving the necessary feedback. Like if they need to view logs, they need to view metrics, they need to view, get alerts and things. That should be built into the platform to help enable that, not like, okay, I pressed the go button and now now it's off. But of course, this is going to depend from company to company what they are doing or would like to do and so on. That's my opinion and hope that answered it.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I would actually continue on that question because that was very relevant. Very good question. Of course, I mean the responsibility trickles down towards the platforms team because they are actually controlling the environment where the applications are running. So, wouldn't that also increase dependencies towards the platforms teams and also increase the actual workload for them to provide to support all teams,
Yeah, it's a
product
really
teams?
nice question as well, and nice like follow up. And I think this is where a platform team needs to have clear boundaries, and set some. I mean, really, you should have some kind of service level agreements and things for your platform, and start thinking in this kind of mindset. Because if you're running in some environment and the environment breaks, that the platform team are responsible for, then it's the platform team's responsibility to get that fixed. If the developers deployed an application that fails for whatever reason, there's a software bug, then it should be clear that that's now for the developer to fix. So there is obviously a shared responsibility in doing this, and that's why it's very clear to say that, look, this is what the platform provides and does, and we will be held accountable for it. But everything above that is then not. And obviously that should change. It's not like it was written on the 15th day of whatever that we've made this API or platform interface. So,
But then you would need a very mature platform team to be able to handle that those type of questions or those issues.
what? Sorry.
A mature
Yeah,
platform
and
team.
that's actually a very all the DevOps teams that have been created, mostly created. I mean, people are hiring the same profile. We need 10 people who do this. They need to know Kubernetes and they need to know AWS and they need to be super technical and hardcore people. And now all of a sudden we're like, oh, actually, you need to build a product. We're going to need someone to design a UI. We're going to need somebody to think about, go and talk with developers, like leave your dungeon. And I think this is a really big struggle for teams to shift around because you've been hiring just for like, you need to know these tools and then you run these tools. And now we're shifting it. So I think yes. I agree. It is really difficult, not because people aren't clever or competent, but because you need a team composition to like achieve that goal. And I think a lot of people aren't thinking about this enough. So really good question.
Yeah, I think that was the last question. There's going to be opportunity to talk about it more afterwards, and let's give Jacob a great hands of applause. Thank you.